Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to the KSL.com Game Center podcast. It is Wednesday, October 18th, and we are joined today by Josh Furlong to talk a little bit of Utah football, considering there is kind of a big game going on this weekend with the Utes traveling out to California to take on USC. How are we feeling this week, Josh?
I think it's a little crazy, right? Like it's always interesting when Utah plays USC. This is always the game that feels like it's the biggest game on the schedule. So it's a fun week.
Yeah, so rematch of the Pac-12 title game from last year, and then of course there was a regular season matchup between these two teams that was an instant classic, I would say. I think that was almost exactly a year ago, if I remember correctly, because I
Mhm.
remember I was in Austin covering the MLS playoffs when that game was going on, so I think it was almost exactly a year ago.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it was pretty close to that time.
yeah, so like mid to late October. And here we are again. This time the game being played in LA. And Utah's in an interesting place, not quite the same as they were last year. It's there's been a lot of stuff going on up on the hill with the Utes. It feels like it's been years just in the last couple months with everything that's going on with quarterbacks and conference realignment and everything. Are you just like pretty exhausted at this point with covering this team?
It has definitely been a trying year in a different respect. I think each year there's always something different that brings it out, but we've been in a lot of ways spoiled to be able to have a winning team, and so it takes a lot of the stress off of trying to come up with different things or coming up with different strategies. Quite honestly, I actually like seasons like this in terms of just having conflict and having different things. There's obviously been a lot of injuries on the University of Utah football team. So there's a lot of different things to be able to talk about, to be able to get from the coach instead of just like how are you going to win this week, And I think it provides good context to fans. Fans are feeling the emotions a little bit more this year, and games aren't necessarily guaranteed. Not that they were in years past, right? I just think Utah obviously had the system in place where a majority of the time, I would say Utah was going to go into a game and know that they could win. That hasn't changed this year, even with all the injuries and everything that's gone on. I just think it's added to the drama of it, just knowing that you don't know who's under center at quarterback, you don't know who's playing based on the season-ending injuries, and so it provides a lot of drama, we'll say, and that's good, right? Like drama sells. So
Yeah, and speaking of injuries, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that Cam Rising's not going to be probably playing quarterback this weekend against Caleb Williams. Uh, I'm guessing Bryson Barnes again is our guy. And there's been more injuries than just that, right? I mean, it just yesterday I think it was announced Thomas Yasman injured as well, tight end. So it kind of just doesn't stop coming for the Utes. But like you said, I mean that creates a lot of interesting narratives. Just last week you had Sione Vaki have his breakout game as a safety coming in and playing running back. So it creates these opportunities, right, for these guys to kind of have their moment. That probably wouldn't have happened with a perfectly healthy Utah roster, right?
yeah, I mean, this is a thing where going into the season, Utah was deep at running back, right? Like they had three established guys. One was coming off injury, but three established guys they had a ton of faith in. You could even count that to four guys. They get banged up, there's season-ending injuries, there's different things that have gone on, and so you're seeing different playmakers try to step up. Sione Vaki, like you mentioned, coming over to the offensive side of the ball. You're getting different quarterbacks in play. You're getting different guys that probably wouldn't normally be in this position, or at least be in this position as regular, step up and do what they need. But you look at somebody like on the defensive side, Jonah Ellis. I mean, he was listed as a number two guy as the defensive end, but based on injuries coming into the season, he came in there and really took ownership of it and has really stepped up. And so you're seeing guys step up and have success. He's now, I think he's number two right now, if I remember, with sacks in the country. I mean, he's really taken a hold of that and he's done well. So, as much as you can look at these injuries, and they have been devastating for Utah, and they've had to be creative in ways to find ways to win. They still are getting a lot out of different people, and I think that bodes well with the depth that Kyle has kind of put together and the different things that he's tried to do that way to make sure that they can absorb some of these hits. I mean, years ago, they lost, Tyler Huntley and Zach Moss, and arguably two very important positions, quarterback and running back. but they couldn't absorb those hits. Once they were out, it was just like the season was really difficult to manage. Yes, they still made it to the Pac-12 championship, but they were limping there more than anything, was possible. So I think it's just different now. I think Utah's a little bit better at absorbing the hits, but it's going into the gauntlet part of the season, and it's only going to get much harder.
For sure, for sure. And you mentioned the depth. I mean, just looking at kind of shifting to the on-field, what's going on the field for Utah right now, right? I mean, they've only lost one game, with everything that's happened, and so these guys who have had these opportunities to kind of rise up and replace these injured guys, they've done well, and they've been able to win these early games for Utah to the point where even as much as they've struggled, they go into USC this weekend only as about a touchdown underdog. I think 6.5 was the line that I saw yesterday. So with all these things, I mean, Utah still has a decent chance to go to LA and beat USC. So I guess looking forward to this weekend specifically, like what gets you excited about a possible another win from Utah against USC?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think if Utah can come into this, and if they can actually beat USC in the Coliseum, a place that they've only won once in their entire time in the Pac-12, if they can do that with all the injuries that they have, I mean, that has to lead to one of the best coaching performances of Kyle Whittingham's career, right? Like, and you can measure some of these of his career and look at it. But I think the fact that you've been able to manufacture that and be able to do it against a solid team, and look, USC has its warts, right? Like we've all seen the issues that they've had on defense. As talented as Caleb Williams is, I mean, he's kind of their team, right? And if Caleb is doing well and able to manufacture what they need to, they generally do well. But this is a fun game. It kind of serves as the benchmark of where Utah can be, knowing that they've got USC, Oregon, Washington, Arizona's looking like a tougher game now. Colorado, you never know what you're going to get with that. The only gimme-ish game for the rest of the season is Arizona State, and so it's going to be a difficult ride. I think a lot of the players get up for this game because it's back at home for many of them who live in who grew up in California. There's a lot of energy with this, obviously, with just how they used to be tied in the South. And so there's a lot of drama here that go beyond just the regular day-to-day games. And so it's exciting to be able to kind of see how this is. And if you can't get excited about this game, even with a depleted roster, I mean, I don't know that you can be excited about football.
Yeah. And you mentioned the guys that are from California. I mean, Cam Rising's one of those guys too. And I know I said earlier that I would bet that he's not going to play, probably Bryson Barnes, but I don't actually know. I mean, is there a chance that Cam Rising plays on Saturday?
I mean, there's always a chance. Every Monday, he gets the clearance from his doctor. Kyle said they got whatever they needed to yesterday. That doesn't mean he was cleared, but they got the word from him, yay or nay. My understanding is that no, he will not. I mean, at this point, I think barring some late game recovery, meaning late in the season, it is looking more to the path where Cam Rising and Brant Keithy could potentially medical redshirt. That was the news that came out this week, and there hasn't been extensive conversations about that. I don't even know if Cam or Brant have even considered it. Kyle has at least mentioned that could be a possibility. So this is a situation now where Utah is looking at, okay, we're not going to get these two guys back, these two big time playmakers. We have to win the season this way, right? And so they're going to do whatever they can to be able to scheme that way with Bryson Barnes, if that's who it is. Maybe Brandon Rose is healthy, or Nate Johnson's still in the mix. There's Luke Patari, who's a walk-on quarterback. There's guys there, but they're thin, right? And in the most important position on the field, they still have Bryson Barnes taking snaps, and he continues to fight and doing what he needs to, but it hasn't been outlandish by any means, right? He threw for 128 yards on Saturday. It wasn't anything big, but he had Sione Vaki, he had Jaquinton Jackson. Like, he's had other players. It's just more managing that offense to make sure it works for him.
Totally. And then kind of talking about Bryson Barnes, and then going back to how this season has kind of felt like a year or multiple years with just how much has gone on. I mean, the first play of the season was a 70-yard touchdown to Money Parks, right, from Bryson Barnes. And so it's like they've shown these flashes, and like these things have happened this season where it's like, how is this the same team, right? It's just kind of mind-boggling.
It is really weird, right? I mean, like, Bryson starts the season as the starter, right? And I don't think many expected him to last that long just because everybody expected Cam to be back soon. But it's just been this up and down roller coaster ride. And, Bryson's still trying to figure out how to be the best quarterback he can be. I mean, I think he takes a lot of the heat, a lot of the frustration from the fans who are, they don't want to see a walk-on quarterback. And he's not a walk-on anymore. And he's proven his ability to be on the field. And, is he perfect? No. But at the same time, he's doing everything that he needs to be able to win games for Utah. And sometimes that comes at the detriment, like it was at Baylor. And he needed to be replaced and kind of figure out different things there. But it has been an up and down roller coaster ride with him. And, at the end of the day, I think he still probably gives you the best ability to be able to get the ball downfield. He opens up the offense a little bit more so that defenses don't just stack the box and force Utah to pass. So it'll be interesting, but I think this is kind of where they're at right now. I think Bryson continues to fight. He's not satisfied by any means. He doesn't think that he's arrived. It's just more kind of continuing to do what they can to piecemeal this offense until they can get to the finish line.
Yeah. And then as far as other guys, you mentioned Jonah Ellis and then Sione Vaki as guys who have kind of stepped up. With the Thomas Yasmin injury, are there any other guys maybe that you're looking at that could possibly step up and kind of surprise fans this weekend in California?
Yeah, this is a tough one because Thomas Yasmin, obviously he has experience and he gave Utah, some protection on the offensive line just from his years that he was able to be there. One of the guys that could potentially be a playmaker on that side of the ball is Landon King. He's a transfer, comes in. He's still a little undersized, and they're trying to bulk him up in the middle of a season, and that doesn't always go well. So it's more of like what he can do in a year from now. But they see a lot of promise out of him. He's got some good hands. We've seen him be able to catch some passes that have been good. There was one pass against Oregon State that if they hadn't committed a penalty, he's gone for like a 60-yard touchdown or something like that. So there is ability there. It's more just trying to make sure that this offense can click and make sure that they have some confidence. There's some guys there that can do well. And, look, I mean, they're, like I said, I feel like I keep going back to it, but they're piecemealing this, right? They're doing what they can. And there's a lot of potential for a lot of these guys to step up and make plays, make a name for themselves. It's just a matter of, can they do that against these teams that are going to be much harder, right? USC, obviously their defense isn't as good. So in theory, Utah could do some damage against them. But, on the other side of the ball, you've got other defensive players who are going to have to step up, right? For example, on Saturday, Utah is going to be without Cole Bishop in the first half because of a targeting call. So it's a continual just move around, shift around of the offense, defense, and just trying to find out who can play and do whatever they can to get to have some success for Utah.
Yeah, so I know we'll get your official pick as part of Pick'em later this week. But Utah USC 6 p.m. on Saturday. What's your gut feeling right now?
As it stands right now, I still am going to give USC the upper hand just because it is a difficult place to play. Anybody that's been to the Coliseum understands how difficult it is. I think, USC is going to be angry, not just because they lost last week, but because Utah beat them twice. And the last one was pretty convincing in a championship setting where USC wins that game and they're in the playoffs. So, they're going to get USC's best effort. That doesn't mean that USC could win. They very well can lose this game and Utah can win. I just think right now, if you're playing the odds, I think you have to go in USC's favor just simply based on everything that's going into this game and how difficult of an environment it can be. But don't count out the Utes. I think they have the ability to be able to go into LA and win. It's just going to be a much taller task than probably would have been expected, even with Cam Rising there.
You heard it here first. Well, we're 6 down, 6 to go, midway point of the season. It's already felt like years off our lives, but we've still got years to go probably with the rest of the season. So should be interesting the rest of the way. Appreciate you coming on, Josh, and we'll catch you guys next time.